Guys, welcome back to session 3 of smartphone photography. This week we're going to be talking about posing people and groups. This is probably one of the trickiest things that, as you see, it might seem like it's very easy to pose people, and then you get out there and it just feels awkward when you take pictures with people. So I'm going to give you guys some tips so you don't feel as awkward like me. Okay, so just to recap really quick, the first week we met, I had a slideshow about following the rules of thirds, or the rule of thirds. I'm like reading exactly what it says. And in that, we have like the cheetah example of having the person fall, or your subject or object or whatever you're taking a picture of, fall in between these little, the intersections of these lines. So as you can see, this picture of this little girl laughing, if we had the lines over her face, her head would be centered perfectly in the top intersection, and then her body is in the bottom. So we are following the rule of thirds with this picture. And then lighting. Just a reminder, we said what is golden hour and what are some ways we can capture natural light in our pictures. So my challenge for you guys last week was to go out and take a picture, or take some pictures while the sun is setting or during sunrise, and then also practicing with natural lighting indoors, with that window light. It's beautiful light to capture. Something else that I wanted to say is that sometimes rules are meant to be broken for certain reasons. So as you see this picture on the left of this guy, this picture does not follow the rule of thirds. He's actually in the center of the picture. But there are some things that make this picture work, and it's that there's these extra lines in here that you can see that adds to the picture, and then he just has like some motion going on. So it's not like he's just sitting there, like he's got his legs propped up, he's pointing. You can see the movement, the action, the lighting is different. So there's actually different layers to this picture that really make it work, that even though he's in the middle. So even though I say, yes, rule of thirds, this is a rule, but it's not like there's always exceptions to the rule, and rules are meant to be broken. So don't feel like by following the rule of thirds like that there are going to be times where you can break that. Here's another picture, and this one, it just has to do with the symmetry. It's just that he's smack dab in the middle of where those lines would be in a rule of thirds, but the background's very appealing, and there's just layers and depth to this picture that make it very, your eyes just go straight to the middle where he's at, and it has to do with this line that's in the center that just draws you towards him. So this is another instance where they're not following the rule of thirds, but it still works. I also like to use this time to highlight different people on social media or other photographers out there that are doing really cool projects. So not everyone is just a photographer who, gets paid to go do things, but a lot of photographers come up with their own projects that keep them interested. So this person, as you see, his Instagram is called Jake Visuals. He had a project where he took it upon himself to go to people's houses during quarantine and take pictures of their life. So this was probably back in April or May. He was going to people's homes during quarantine and just taking pictures, capturing from their windows. There were a lot of great pictures, but these are just a few that I pulled. Posing individuals. So many things to think about. One thing that you can see, at least if we look at the center picture of this girl and this little boy on the right, is how their bodies are angled. They're angled in a way where one of their shoulders is slightly tilted in front of the other one. And then their face has kind of like a tilt to it, where they're looking at the camera. So this is one of my favorite poses, especially for like kids and teens. You can see in the middle, her hands aren't just sitting by her side, but she has one hand over the other. The boy on the right, his hands are in his pockets. So you can just see his arms are doing something too. And then this guy on the left has his hand, one hand, can't see one of them because it's being blocked. Yeah, one hand on his shorts and the other one gripping the backpack. His body's not really angled, it's slightly angled, but I did more angling with the camera of like bending down a little bit and looking up to take this picture, and he was looking off into the distance. Giving direction. I highly recommend that. I mean, some people that you take pictures of are going to naturally like pose a certain way, and it could be in their personality. And then other people you're going to have to really give direction to of why don't we try this or try that. People just get kind of awkward, like I said. So this is one of my friends, and on the left, I think she chose that pose. She was just being kind of cute. In the middle, I don't know. I think honestly she was doing these herself. The one on the far right, I encouraged her to do of telling her like, "Hey, let's try this. I know it's gonna feel weird. Like it felt really awkward to be out on the sidewalk and to put her hands like that and kick her heel up. Like she was not that happy, but it turned out like really great, and she looks way happier. It's like one of these things where it's like when you take the picture or when you're doing it in public, it seems so awkward, but when you look at the picture afterwards, it actually looks really good. So that one is just, we kicked up her leg, added some movement, did something with her arms, so she's not just standing there. But as you look at all these, their hands are in a position. They're not just by their side. One hand's in the hair, one hand's on the chin. It's like you got to keep your hands busy in a picture, unless it's just a face portrait. So yeah, directing your model, adding that movement. Here's some other ones. Taking a picture by a wall, leaned up against the wall, is like always gonna come out good. And that's really all it is. It's like, hey, lean against this wall and look at the camera. Like if they are leaned on their back and they turn their head towards the camera, it's gonna end up with a great shot every time. This one in the middle, I was probably bent down a little bit looking up at her because she's not a very tall person. But yeah, I just told her to smile and to hold her dress and just to just twist back and forth. When you have a flowy dress like that, it's easy to get like the movement does add so much to the picture. So she really wasn't doing that much. It was the wind had picked up and she was just kind of slowly swaying back and forth holding her dress. And it turned out really well. And then here's this another picture of my friend of when I told you guys, like, it felt so awkward to be like, hey, hug yourself. And it always comes out really great. So it feels cheesy in the moment, but like I promise, like just try it out and see what happens. So she hugged herself. She's looking at the camera over her shoulder look. And we got that pic. Couples. The number one thing I can tell you when you're taking a picture of a couple is to have them, or like a pair of people, two people, is like touch foreheads, touch cheeks. If your heads aren't touching, there's just the gap looks so big and awkward. I wish I would have put a non-example in here, but here are good examples. So this couple on the left, this guy's cheek is touching her head. Here in the middle, they're touching heads, and then this one, it's mostly like heads / like ears are touching, but as you can see, there's barely any space in between them, and that is what we want, because a tiny space in person looks like a huge space on camera. So I know like some people might not always want to stand like that close to each other, but if they want a good picture, it's kind of what you have to do. Couples and pairs, again, this is actually my sister and her family. So on the left, they were just kind of playing around, and I thought that was fun. So they just I added movement to their picture. You can just direct and have people do actions and take pictures of them. Your cameras on iPhones adjust really well to movement as well, or any other smartphone. So depending, you probably don't want so much movement where people are just like flopping all over the place, but you do want a little bit of movement sometimes, if that's what you're going for. It always makes a picture look fun. And then, yeah, these kiddos, my niece and nephew, I just had them hold hands and put their arms up, and they thought that that was fun. And it just makes them look cute in this picture. Groups and families. So when you're posing more than two people, either way, you still want to like close out the space. So if you see this picture, like ideally, it's very hard. Let me just say, it's so hard to take pictures with kids. Like they just are on their own schedule and their own goals. Like they're not worried about like having a great family picture. So the dad, I would have ideally liked for their heads to be a little bit closer together, but this was pretty much the best we could get. And I mean, I'm just saying, I took a ton of pictures, so this was like a winner for us. And then on the right, you can have the spouses or whoever stand close together and then have the kids with them. But what I'm trying to do is like not have a lot of extra space. I will say it's a little bit harder when someone is so tall. We could have probably brought them a little bit closer together. Maybe have her stand in front of him a little bit, and that probably would have made this picture look a little better. But yeah, when there's a lot of tall people, I do like to have them leveled out a little bit. So he's on his knees and she's crouched down, and then their heads are just together. So it works out pretty well. Here are some bigger groups, and I just say like the bigger the group gets, the more challenging it gets, especially when the sizes are very off. But this one, so yeah, the dad's very tall, so we squeeze mom in there. They're holding the smallest kids because if you put them on the ground, you can't see them. Our two girls here are about the same size, so the one, she's a little bit shorter, she's in front of her mom, and then we have this one in the middle. Another great thing about this picture is it actually just matches up with what they're wearing. So, you got the parents in the background, and then you got these little striped outfits, so they're holding that. Then you have the gray long sleeve, and then you have the black in the middle. So this one worked out also with the colors, with their outfit, with what they were trying to rock. And then this picture on the right, this little family that was also so hard to get a picture of because their little boy wanted to not take pictures. But yeah, so they're tall people, so we just had to get them as close together as possible. Like I said before, I would like to not have as many gaps, but it's kind of the best we could do for the situation with having a 2-year-old. More groups. I wanted to put a couple pictures of some guys because I know girls pose differently than guys do. So here's a couple examples of some guys. We got these guys who just have one arm around each other, but there's a little more space between them. I would say this is okay because like most guys don't pose with their cheeks touching, but this is a pretty good friend picture for a couple guys. This one as well. There's a slightly amount of space between them, but it definitely works. So key takeaways. When you're doing pictures, first, making sure that if you have people that they stand closely together, incorporate hands, especially if like the hands are in the picture. Incorporate movement sometimes, obviously not all the time. You don't want a bunch of movement in every picture if that's not the point. But if you're trying to take social media, Instagram pics, then yeah, add some movement. Do something fun with your body. Direct your models, tell them what to do. Like the more you do this, the more comfortable you're going to get with like what you want someone to do and like how you want it to look. Have individuals tilt a shoulder forward where they're standing almost sideways. So just like this girl is on our right, she's showing us like what she looks with a flat back to the camera, and then on the right she's tilted a little bit, and personally I think the one on the right looks better. I guess it depends on the purpose, but overall I think, yeah, I like the way that looks a lot better than with the flat back. One thing you can actually say is bring your chin out and down, because a lot of people, they have their heads a little too high, or sometimes their heads a little too low. So literally telling people to touch foreheads, touch noses if it's like a couple you're trying to take a picture of. Touch ears, cheeks. And yeah, I like that one. Bring your chin out and then down. It helps, like people's heads are usually too high in the pictures. And then lastly, It's simple, but make sure everyone's visible. When you take a picture of like a group of 4 or 5 people, it's so easy for one person to have their head covered or an eye, and you just want to make sure everyone's faces are visible. So, my challenge to you guys is take what you learned about posing people and take a photo of either an individual, a couple or pair, or a small group, and let me know what you come up with. So here's another couple examples. Yeah. So there's a cute couple, they're touching, a couple of girlfriends just chilling on vacation, and then there's just me eating a cookie, and I've got movement going on. So it's not just me standing in front of a mountain, but I'm like, hey, this picture tells a little more because I'm eating this delicious cookie. Never forget it, on this hike. So I think that is all. Oh, here's one more thing. Looking ahead, I'm going to be talking about photo editing in the next week or two. So if you guys want, I would recommend to download either VSCO, Snapseed, or really any photo editing app that you like. And then I will talk about that next time we're in class, or one of the next times. So this says right in the chat box, write in the discussion board. What did you learn today from this lesson? And don't forget to fill out your exit ticket.